Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Up with Steph. Today, I've got a pretty cool conversation that I think will apply to pretty much anyone who's listening, and it's about social media, specifically how social media is changing the way our brains work. I don't know about you, but ever since I really started heavily using social media, I feel like my attention span has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. I was watching a video the other day and it was less than a minute, and I was finding myself becoming impatient. And I'm like, oh my God, Stephanie, this video is not even a minute long. Like, what is wrong with you? But I feel that too, even with TV shows. It's really hard for me to sit still, or movies or whatever it is. And I honestly, I think it's because of this heavy social media use. And depending on how it shows up in your life, at least for me, I use it a lot for work. And so I can't really just get away from it like some people can. I have to be on there, probably not as long as I usually am, but I do have to use it. And I would love to know some tools and tricks to make sure that I'm using it in a healthy way and not a bad way. I've also found that when I'm like doom scrolling or just flipping around these different apps, it's almost like a compulsion and it doesn't feel good, but I also just keep doing it. And I'm like, am I getting addicted to this? Is there such a thing as social media addiction? So I decided to bring on an expert who speaks about this exact thing. I take some courses through a platform called INR, and they do have dental courses, but they also have courses on a whole bunch of different things like dementia and social media and mindfulness, meditation, exercise. And I really like taking courses that aren't necessarily dental related. I just feel like it rounds out my education. So that's been a great platform for me. And I found today's guest on that platform because he has a brand new webinar on social media and our brains. His name is Kent Howard. I actually took a course of his last year on mindfulness and meditation that was really good, but super excited to share our conversation today. We talk about social media, how it's impacting our brains, specifically young people. And I don't have kids, but I do get concerned about how this is impacting our young people and really how it's going to affect our entire population as those young people get older, right? Because it's impacting their anxiety, their depression, their social skills, their ability to communicate. And that's just going to affect all of us as they get older. He shared with us the differences in different platforms, like some are quote unquote better for you than others as far as attention span and our mood. And he also shared some tips on just making sure that we're using social media in a healthy way by maybe using timers or making sure that we're being super intentional when we pick up our phones and we're not just like randomly picking it up just because we're bored, which a lot of us do. And just a reminder, I do have the episode separated into chapters. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you can just skip to whatever chapter interests you. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Kent. Hey, it's Steph, and welcome to the Straight Up with Steph podcast, where we have real discussions around health and life and just trying to be better at both. Hello, Kent. Thank you so much for joining today.
Well, hello to you. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh my gosh. I've been looking forward to this episode for a while, and I'm so happy that you said yes when I reached out because I've taken your courses before.
Oh, great.
And I'm actually signed up for your course. I know this podcast is going to air after this course, but your social media course that's coming up in like a week and a half from now. So I'm stoked about it.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's coming up on the 16th of August for those of you who need some CEs out there. But I guess you won't see this until afterwards. So.
Yeah, but honestly, I would imagine, I'm sure that you're going to give the course again. So I'm going to put links in the show notes so that people can check you out. But I've really enjoyed taking courses on INR. I'm in dentistry and I've taken a million dental courses, but I really like taking courses that aren't necessarily dental related. I get a lot out of those.
I get a lot of dentists, a lot of dental assistants, just across the board in my webinars.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really amazed. I get everyone from licensed massage therapists to licensed PhD psychotherapists in the same room on the same subject. So I have to kind of hit a sweet spot in the middle. So everyone.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
One side isn't too bored and one side understands. Yeah.
I just think it's really good to, have well-rounded topics as clinicians. And I feel like you're in a good spot. I've taken your course on mindfulness before. I just got an email today that you're teaching one on exercising. Like exercise as medicine too?
I actually have 3 courses on exercise. One is called Exercise as Medicine. Another one is Exercise Aging in the Brain, how we need to keep exercising as we get older. especially, and then I have a brand new on mindfulness as exercise and physical activity. So
Oh,
I
wow.
think I've covered all my bases there so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to put links to INR in the show note, and I encourage people to check those out. But today we're talking about social media. And I myself, I have a business, I create a lot of content, and I'm on social media a lot
Hmm.
personally. And I know that it's affecting my brain. So I'm really excited to talk
All
to
of
you
us.
about this. Yeah, I'm sure. My attention span is about this big now.
Yes.
But when we talk about people on their phones, are there like numbers or stats as far as how long people are actually on their phone during the day?
They're all over the place, and there are a lot of different agencies trying to track numbers, and it's so hard when you're dealing with literally billions of people who have a smartphone around the world. In general, people are on their phones anywhere from 2 hours a day to 7 or 8 hours a day.
Holy
And
cow.
some of the people have the longest usage during an average day are children. It's really amazing. Up through adolescence, maybe age 12 through 17 or so. And then they can be on there as much as 7 to 8 hours a day.
Now, is that, I don't even know if they can track this, but when we're talking about kids, is that all on social media or are they like gaming as well
Oh,
on their phones?
when I say that, I mean everything. I mean,
Oh,
the
okay.
delivery vehicle for this drug is called the smartphone. A lot of kids, once they get home from school, they'll get on their iPad or get on their laptop or whatever, and that's when they might do more gaming and things like that.
Okay.
But sharing of media, photographs, videos, whatever, can be done on the smartphone, of course.
Gosh. So my big thing is I'm in dentistry, but I help people with posture and ergonomics.
Hmm.
And I just get so nervous when I think or scared or whatever when I think of kids and these hours on their cell phones because 99% of the time they're not doing it with good posture. And then I see kids just hunched over all day long, just walking around like that.
I'm trying to straighten my spine as we speak.
I know.
Is she judging me?
Never. No, even me sometimes I'm like, oh my God, why am I hunched over right now? It's hard to
Slumping like
remember.
this. Yeah, I was teaching one of my webinars yesterday morning, Sunday. It's on meditation and the brain, it's called. So we do a lot of meditating. I introduced the meditation. And one is posture in meditation. So I had to teach them
Huh.
how to sit properly, keep a nice erect lower back, lower spine, and this sort of thing. And how if you don't, if your shoulders slump and your head falls down and your spine pushes out, to the rear, you fall asleep. People
Well,
kept
it
saying,
affects your breathing too.
"Oh
Like you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
breathe well when
yeah,
you're hunched like that.
yeah." So you naturally just fall asleep as you do in the evening. And I just tell them if you're falling asleep when you're meditating, just straighten that spine up a little and pull the shoulders back and get your chin pointed down towards your clavicle here, and you'll wake up.
Yeah, I'm glad you talk about that. When I'm trying to be better with meditating, if I lay down, I will most often fall asleep. So I have to do it sitting up.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can meditate anywhere. I teach walking meditation, standing meditation, just about anything at all. And
Yeah.
lately, I've been telling people if you want to get off your cell phone for a little while, here are some breathing exercises and some postural exercises and things like that. And that often helps people to put a little distance between them and their cell phone.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about some more tips for it because I know I need that a little
Mm.
bit later. But I really like how you talk about social media as both a tool, but it can also be a trap. So, are there like warning signs or red flags we should look for to make sure that we're not falling into that trap mode?
Yeah, everywhere. But the red flags are seen mostly by people around you. If you're
Okay.
younger, your parents, or, older, your children, your spouse, whatever. Often we don't see the red flags that someone else tells us. They said, you've been sitting there on that phone for 2 hours, things like that. And then we realize, oh my goodness. So what do? There are great things about the internet and about just usage of social media and things like that. I mean, it's allowed kids to connect with their grandparents on Facebook, and things like that. Some people live out in the countryside, don't see people often, they're lonely, isolated. The internet can be fantastic as far as just meeting people online and staying connected and all this sort of thing. But there are some drawbacks. You can get stuck on there. And someone using their phone for 6 or 7 hours a day, A lot of time you're just sitting there, what we call doom scrolling, just scrolling to the edges of doom, as the kids say. And how do you get out of that? It's a tough question.
What exactly is doom scrolling for those who don't know?
Well, yeah, it's a kind of funny little term. Well, scrolling, of course, I think we all know if you've ever
Yeah.
been on TikTok, if you've been on in Instagram, there are a couple, well, even Facebook, anything where you can scroll up or down or swipe left, swipe right, sort of things. Doom scrolling is where you just are on there for no purpose. You're bored, you're depressed, whatever it is, you're anxious perhaps, and you're just scrolling, 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 trying to find some content to wake you up and make you feel happy again, a little rush of dopamine or whatever. So that's what doom scrolling is.
I do this thing when I pick up my phone and I go to, let's just say, check an email, and I check my email, and then I'm like, it's like almost a compulsion that I have to check every other app that I use on that phone. Is that an example of doom scrolling, or what is
Uh,
that?
well, yes and no. I mean, I do that. I first of all check my email because I am in business. I have a boss and all this sort of thing. So I have to check my email, and sometimes there's some social things on the email. Sometimes I'll check if it's a chat coming up or something like that. So we all do this. So I try to do 5 or 10 minutes of the essential things, like checking my, if I finished the chat from yesterday or what's on Facebook, perhaps, just to see if anyone, had a baby last night or
Yeah.
whatever. That's usually fairly quick, and then I'll check my email and try to get off. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, you need to have a purpose. If you want to detox, as they say, get off of some of the time on the internet, you need to have a purpose to get on there. So as you open up your cell phone or your laptop or whatever, you want to ask yourself, where am I going? Why am I doing this? Is it something I need to do? Okay, email, I have to look at that today. If it's Facebook, I can look at that tomorrow.
Yeah.
My cousin's new cute little puppy will still be there tomorrow on Facebook. So you have to sort of set goals for yourself. And once you've reached that goal, you have to tell yourself, well, that's it. Now I'm doom scrolling. I need to get off of here. And that's a tough thing to do if you're a kid. If you're a child or an adolescent, you don't have those, that sort of prefrontal cortex up there isn't fully developed. It can't tell you what you should be doing, not doing. The executive function of the brain isn't fully formed yet. So they need help. Otherwise, it's hard for them to stop.
Is there, I don't know if, I mean, is there any like studies or research or anything out there that's showing this early cell phone use, like when the kid's brain isn't fully developed yet? Like, is that actually impacting their development over time?
Sure. Yeah. The problem with right now with studies on, say, social media use is that a lot of it is just comparative studies. Really have the strong data saying, yes, because of this happened, and because that happened, your brain is going to be, cognitively speaking, is going to be in a real bind. We don't have that kind of data, sort of causative data, telling us if you do A, B is going to happen, or C is going to happen, because a lot of it is speculative. So that's a problem out there.
Is there anything that we do know for sure? Like, I know myself, my attention span is so short now. I even get impatient with like a 3-minute video, which is crazy. It never used to be that way. So are there things that we know for sure?
Well, a 3-minute video, I mean, you're amazing. You stuck with it for 3 minutes.
Well, sometimes it's a minute. It depends on the
Yeah.
content. And I'm
Well,
like, why
less
am I
than
getting
that.
impatient over 60 seconds?
The average video on TikTok is 13 seconds. That's it. And it'll be a music video. They'll actually, edit the music down, a 3-minute song down to 13 seconds because people get bored.
Yeah.
And they get off. I teach Tai Chi and yoga, things like that. And I have this channel on YouTube where I'm teaching something called Bagua, which is like Tai Chi. And I realized that even on these shorts that you do, if you're not finished within about 15 seconds, if you haven't caught their attention in 15 seconds, they're gone. And you can look at the analysis of this on YouTube, on your channel, for example. You've probably done this. The people logged on, 1,000 people saw the first 5 seconds of your video, but only 200 saw the first 15 seconds of your video.
Isn't that crazy?
So it tells you have to get on there And this is what I learned. I had doing some fancy Tai Chi movement or something. I had to do that first. As soon as they
Yep.
logged on, they had to see me doing this wild and crazy thing. And so they'd stick around. Okay. But if you log on and I'm telling you what I'm going to do right now or just talking to you, boom, they're gone.
Yep.
So that's doom scrolling. You scroll, scroll, scroll. You say, oh, Tai Chi, cool. Oh, he's just talking. You're gone. You have about 5 seconds to catch their attention.
It's just crazy. I do a lot of ergonomic how-to videos, and it's the same thing. It's like and these things I can't teach in 10 seconds, so I have to figure out how to grab them in those first few seconds, and hopefully they'll stick around. But it's crazy now.
Yeah, absolutely is. So that's a trap right there. The fact that we're waiting for something to happen quicker. We saw that early on. I mean, decades ago, I was doing research in psychology, people on television, just regular television with commercials and all that. And the commercials had to get shorter and shorter. Television way back in the 60s, 70s, commercials were often like a minute or 2 minutes long for
Oh,
oatmeal
wow.
or whatever. Because, the space was affordable and people had nothing to do. They just sit there and watch the commercial. Not now. If
No.
you've got 15 seconds, you can run probably 2 commercials, between starting the next Netflix episode or whatever. So that's something that's really, really changed.
It's crazy now because like I was just visiting my parents, and on some of their like TV apps, they don't pay for the no ads, and so there's ads, and there's that little thing that says like it's going to be 60 seconds of ads, and it is
Yeah.
excruciating waiting for that to
Yeah,
end. And I
yeah, waiting for
remember it never used to be that way when I
whether
was
for
younger.
Netflix or Hulu, this is how they make their money.
Yeah.
And you can say on Amazon Prime or whatever, pay a little money and not get the advertisements.
Yeah.
Pay a little more money and make sure that you don't see any advertisements or they come in the beginning or end of the show. Anyway, the point is we're just collectively as a society, we're beginning to lose our focus. That sounds like something that's almost overkill there, but it's absolutely true.
Well, I believe it. Are there some apps that are worse, I guess, for that than others?
I'd say TikTok, definitely.
Yeah.
Instagram, number two. So if you're a young girl, you're on number one. Instagram, number two. TikTok. I mean, Facebook even isn't even on the radar screen. If you're
Yeah.
between 13 and 18 years of age, face what? You know?
They think it's like old people using that, right?
Yeah, and it is still the most popular app in the world. Facebook, it still has like 3 billion people logged onto that thing. But at the same time, the younger kids aren't on there at all.
Yeah.
They're on there to talk to grandma, and then they got to get off.
Yeah. And get
And
on
that's
TikTok,
about it.
right?
Yeah, the ones that are really eating into our overall understanding of what it is to be able to relax and just think about things with nothing prompting us, is something that we're losing pretty much. Yeah.
So, since you mentioned younger girls, does social media impact age groups differently or sexes differently?
Both. Age groups with girls especially. Well, first of all, girls go through puberty earlier than boys, so that they're going to be 2 or 3 years ahead of boys going into puberty normally. So that's a really sensitive time for girls, especially, and that time that they shouldn't be on social media very much. In fact, most people like Jonathan Haidt and Twenge and other people are saying that these are researchers are
Okay.
saying that girls in middle school shouldn't have a phone. Girls and boys, but especially girls going through puberty shouldn't have a phone at school. They shouldn't have a smartphone. Maybe
And why is that exactly?
just because they're so vulnerable at that age. And we already have a divide between girls who are going through puberty before boys, and these are kids, a boy and girl who may have gone through preschool, kindergarten together, all this sort of thing. They get up into third, fourth grade. The girls start going through puberty, and they are stronger. They're getting faster than the boys. And in the classroom, cognitively, they're leaping ahead of the boys. And the boys really don't know what to do suddenly. There's this monster sitting next to me, smarter and stronger and all this sort of thing. So by the time they hit puberty, that's a real red flag for boys because they're suddenly finding out they can catch up with girls with strength and endurance and the mental clarity and all this sort of thing. So most researchers are saying, a flip phone is fine if you're in middle school, early years like that. So you can stay in touch with your parents or whatever, or even chat with your friends, but not a smartphone for many reasons.
Well, I just can't imagine because I'm just think back to when I was younger and going through
Mm.
that time, and I would, compare myself to other people. My body was changing and I was really uncomfortable with that. And just, it was
Hmm.
almost like FOMO also back then,
Yeah,
but I didn't have that word for it. Is that kind of what we get concerned about with girls, is this comparison and just feeling bad about themselves?
definitely. That's one reason. You don't want to say too much and sort of put yourself in a bucket where you're trying to perhaps too hard come down on younger kids like that. But it's true. They have a problem with their bodies changing suddenly and making comparisons, things like that. Once you're in middle school, you start into gym classes where you're taking showers with everyone,
Yeah.
and everyone's comparing their bodies to each other, men, boys, and girls. So yeah, and that can be a real problem as far as just self-esteem. You mentioned FOMO, which is fear of missing out. That's a big part of the whole culture with TikTok and other things like that, is that you're afraid if you don't log on, you're going to miss something.
Yeah.
Your friend will post a photo and you missed it. It already got buried in the queue or whatever. So you have a feeling you had to pick up your phone every 10 minutes to see what's going on with this fear of missing something.
I remember back then, I mean, I grew up, I feel like it's interesting because I grew up with I didn't have cell phones. I
Mm,
didn't even have the internet until I was late in high school. When I tell kids that, they just look at me like I'm crazy. But back then, I remember if I didn't, have someone call me after school or
hmm.
I actually, that was it. I had this like fixation on how many people would call me, and that's how I felt good about myself, which
Right.
sucks, just looking back. But I would imagine that's kind of how it is now with social media, and people probably feel really left out sometimes too if they see a party's going on and they weren't invited. I can't even imagine how that must feel to young people.
And that is social media in a nutshell. I'll quote you. There's a party going on, and I'm not there. I'm not invited. So you get on your social media, you do something like FaceTime, some app like that where you can actually talk to someone and see their face. But even that doesn't give you the social skills that you need, to get through life. There's an article in the New York Times yesterday about Gen Z stare, it's called. So you'll talk to someone in a certain age group or aren't quite as good as you are at just socializing, just psychosocial things. And you'll ask them a question or whatever, and you'll get this stare, and they won't talk for 5 seconds while they're formulating what to say.
Oh,
This comes
wow.
from internet usage where you have time to listen in on something, formulate your response, and then spit it back out. But when you're standing face to face with someone in a McDonald's or something, they're asking you, "Do you want fries with that?" And you're just staring at them. There's like, "What's up with him?"
That's really interesting. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it's just something that has come up recently, and it's trending on TikTok now. If you want to go on and check that out, it's called the Gen Z stare. I'm not
Okay.
sure how true that is. You
Well,
know.
I am a dental hygienist. I don't treat patients as much anymore just because of my business. But
Mm,
I remember back when I was working full time, I would have a kid in the chair and I would be chatting with them, and it was super awkward. And I'm like, okay, like we weren't
mm.
able to really converse normally. And I thought it was me because I'm like, okay, I'm just getting old and I'm not cool anymore, clearly, and they don't want to talk to me. But also, I feel like they don't have those skills to really socialize in public. Maybe they're great on social media, but in person, it was pretty awkward. It was like moving through quicksand trying to talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on, say, FaceTime or something like that, you can be face to face with your friend or several friends like that. And you can sit there and play with your hair or whatever and talk to them, but you can't do that out in public
Mm-mm.
or in the dentist's office having your teeth cleaned or whatever.
Yeah.
You have to participate in this ritual, this conversation, whether you're interested in this person or not. You have to say, "Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that," or say something instead of just looking and twisting your hair or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I'm picking on girls right there. I don't mean to do that. Boys are the same way. So this is a huge problem with social media. The fact that it's really one way. Even if you're on an app where you can see people and talk to people real time, it's still kind of one way. You're not there. You can't touch them. You can't
Mm.
laugh and grab their arm and laugh together or whatever. It's just one way. So when they get out into public, it becomes a little awkward because at home I didn't have to touch you or, look in your eyes too often, things like that. So,
Well, it's almost like that screen, like even if you're FaceTiming or whatever, that screen
mhm.
is still there. And it's almost like a little security blanket or something, or a
Oh yeah,
barrier between you and that
yeah.
person. And in person, you don't have that.
Yeah, you can always step way out of the picture or whatever and get away for a second. But yeah, it's not real life. It's not
Yeah.
true psychosocial understandings and working with other people. So that could be a problem ongoing. I mentioned that in my webinar too.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how people are socially in 20 or 30 years from now. It could be
It's
very strange.
it could be very, very different. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
I think too about ChatGPT and how people are using that for almost everything as far as like responding to emails or even coming up with text responses or whatever. And I'm like, what are you going to, that's fine for virtual stuff, I guess, but what are you going
Hmm.
to do in person when someone asks you a question? Like you're going to have to think and use your own brain. And if you're
Right.
not used to doing that, it could get really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm not a big user of ChatGPT. I did a lot of experimenting with it early on. I even put in, for example, topics for webinars and asked for feedback. And number one, ChatGPT can't write.
Yeah.
They write plausible sentences, complete sentences, but there's something missing. Sometimes they hallucinate things. Yeah, especially me. I have to be really careful when I give webinars. I have to do a lot of research. I've looked through, literally hundreds of research papers trying to find this information, say on social media.
Hmm.
Okay. And then if you ask ChatGPT to look for the same information, it comes up with a lot of neat sounding stuff, these bullet points, and sounds so cool, but yet at the same time hallucinates what we call citations. Say, oh yeah, here's a citation from the American Journal of Dentistry or whatever, and then you go to look up the citation, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not a real citation. It's like it was trying to please you. Say, oh, I
I
don't have anything.
exactly.
Try
It,
this.
it it does. I almost want to tell it sometimes like stop trying to like please me or whatever and just give me information because it's weird. Or they'll give you a citation and you click the link and it's a completely different study on something unrelated.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think people are
completely.
leaning way too heavily on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. You look through my webinar on social media I sent to you, so we have a basis, for
Hmm.
talking here. And you sent me, I hope this isn't giving away secrets here. You
Oh,
sent me
it's
a
fine.
list of possible questions we may ask, so I wouldn't get suddenly surprised by something or whatever. Of course, I knew all this stuff anyway. But what I did was take your questions. You sent me about 10 questions that you might use, and I fed it into the chat GPT. And the output was about 75% okay. I kind of came up with that myself. The rest of it was like, are you kidding? That's, that's ridiculous. Well, where'd you get that, And where it got it was from training on just about the entire internet, So
Oh, really?
it trains on internet data, so you get bad stuff, good stuff. That's why it often formulates these hallucinations where it gives you things that don't exist because that's what we do on the internet. We go on and we get on a really bad site that's just giving you a fake news, so to speak. But ChatGPT doesn't know that.
Yep.
It doesn't know it's fake news, so it has to balance it with the stuff from a scientific side or an educational side or whatever. And it usually comes out on top, but sometimes it's lost in the clutter out there. So it's a
Yeah.
dangerous tool.
Yeah, I just think people need to be very cautious. And you're right. It's funny too because we're like, oh, ChatGPT is perfect because it's pulling everything, from the internet. And it's
Yeah,
like,
all the
okay, if we
garbage.
assume if we assume everything on the internet is true, which we know it's not.
Yeah, absolutely so. And also the fact that people are handing in essays written entirely by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I can spot there is software out there. Quillbot has a piece of software in there where it can detect AI output.
Okay.
Yeah, so you cut and paste it in there. It says, "Is this AI?" And it'll say 95% sure this is AI. Okay.
Well, that's
And
good.
professors at school or high school teachers, they have this same software. It can take your essay and put it right in there and say, "Wait a minute, 70% chance that this is not is written by an AI program."
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so going back to social media, I do want to
Sure.
talk about some people call it an addiction.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to ask you, like, do you think that's true? And is there a difference between maybe being addicted to it or just having a strong habit? Or is that just the same thing?
That's a deep question. I
Okay.
probably have about 12 or 13 slides on my slideshow on social media that we talk about that. That's a slippery slope, as they say.
Okay.
Why I say that is because, I mean, we know what's addictive. Alcohol's addictive. We know that nicotine is addictive, and things like that. And there are withdrawal symptoms. And many of these are not only psychological, but physical
Yeah.
withdrawal symptoms. Can you say that about the internet? If someone's on, TikTok 6 hours a day and you suddenly push them down to zero or maybe down to an hour or whatever, and they feel this pressure to, well, they feel anxiety, number one,
Yeah.
and a slight bit of, say, depression or depressive ideation anyway, because they just feel like FOMO. They're missing out on
Is that
something.
it? Yeah.
So that's tough. But if you look at things like the DSM-5, that's the manual that psychiatrists use and psychologists. There's nothing in there. There are a couple of syndromes that are close to that, but they never mention the internet. There's no internet addiction. There's variable ratio outcomes which are similar to slot machines. Okay, I call this a variable ratio outcome. So we know that at some point you will win the prize. You just don't know when. Okay, so that's there. Also, we have dependencies. Some psychologists call it a dependency. Once you're off a dependency, you'll struggle with it, but you're not going to have a full-on a relapse or whatever if you don't get your drug, even if the drug is TikTok. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's really a slippery slope. But also, and people don't like me saying this, but younger psychologists, especially people who are in their mid-30s now, 40s, whatever, they grew up with the internet, and they've had the smartphone for years now, and they are very reluctant to say that there are addictive mechanisms because it takes them in there too.
Really?
They're
That's
included.
interesting.
They're included in the diagnosis, so they stay far away from it. If you look at the American Psychological Association's website and talk about this, you'll get so many apologists for the social media. A lot of them are PhD psychiatrists, rather, and also PhD psychologists, and they're kind of covering their own tracks. They don't want anyone else to say, "Whoops, I'm addicted too." You know? So that's kind of interesting. But to answer your question fully, we can't say it. Even if you look at the ICD-11, that's handbook for the WHO uses around the world, there's nothing in there except gambling, dysphoria or whatever, some sort of gambling addiction. But nothing is saying that TikTok is as addictive as nicotine or as addictive as alcohol, because we just don't see the withdrawal symptoms like we do alcohol.
Well, I wonder if maybe there's just a different word for it, like compulsion. Cause it definitely, when
Yes.
I'm on there and I'm like sucked in, it's weird. It doesn't feel good to me, but I also feel like I can't stop doing it. And I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, what is this?
that's a definite dependency.
Okay.
That's what they don't want to stretch out into actually being an addiction. They want to
Okay.
call it a dependency. You're dependent upon it. Well, we are all dependent. We mentioned that already, just because our emails on there, and we have to talk to Aunt Mary, at some point on
Yeah.
Facebook and all this sort of thing. So we're dependent on it for communicating and doing lots of things, lots of good things sometimes. But at the same time, when we don't have it, are we in withdrawal? Are we feeling depressed? Major depression brought on by not having this. And that's a tough one. And it's something that, again, psychologists, psychiatrists don't want to take on. They literally don't want to take it on.
Well, does social media impact our like reward system in our brain like a substance does?
Sure. We'll start with dopamine.
Okay.
There's a whole dopamine circuit within the brain, which is absolutely natural. I mean, if you're a little kid, 12 months old, and you're learning to stand up and take your first steps and all this, you have this rush of dopamine saying, "Yeah, dude, I'm doing it. I'm doing it." Oh, and you fall down, and you get up again. And by the time you start taking long steps and then running, you're having this rush of dopamine coming in. So that's natural in the human brain. But what we're looking at on this variable reward syndrome is that we're trying to doom scroll until we hit that golden nugget, that thing we really want to see. And then that gives us the rush of dopamine. Or we see a photo of someone we really care about on the internet or whatever it may be. And so we want more of that because that feels really good. There are all sorts of things like endorphins and serotonin and things involved. But the quickest in through the brain, through various channels in the brain, is dopamine. And the problem is you can get used to it. You get used to playing a video game, and at first you beat the boss or whatever, you hit the next level and you get this rush of dopamine. But once you've done that 2 or 3 times in a row, it's like, whatever. And you look for things that are going to give you that rush again. It could be going on TikTok and taking some challenge where you take your bicycle and try to run it off a cliff into the river or whatever, anything to give you this rush of dopamine.
Yeah.
And that can be quite dangerous. Yeah.
You mentioned too in your course that like frequent users of social media might find lower satisfaction in other areas of their life. Is that because of this like almost desensitizing dopamine?
Often, yeah. Just the fact that you can have instant gratification on the internet. I'm not even saying social media. Lots of things out there. If you look up something or you look up a piece of music, I get a little stuck on YouTube.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Because I'm a musician, I love to play and listen to music. It's a great discovery device. You can find music that you like and then link it over to this other person you never heard of. Oh, and this group in Albania, wow, amazing. I never heard of them before. And I get a little stuck there, Then I realize within 30 or 40 minutes, hey, you got work to do. Put the phone down. But kids can't do that. Again, they don't. This prefrontal cortex, where we have these executive functions, as they're called, where we can discriminate between what I should be doing, shouldn't be doing. Is this reward worth the effort? All sorts of things like that. It's not really in place until our mid-20s. Often, especially with women, until you're 23, 4, 5. Now you're out of college, perhaps, and or into your profession, and you're getting more and more control of your brain and your impulses. And that's why it's so dangerous. A lot of researchers like Jonathan Haidt, he wrote a great book on whole generation being lost right now, what he believes. He said that, again, middle school, they shouldn't have a phone. If they have anything, it's a flip phone. That's it. Yeah. If you're so worried about them, that you want them to call you or whatever, lunchtime or whatever, then fine, they can use a flip phone, but don't give them a smartphone at all. In fact, most researchers are saying you shouldn't have your first smartphone until freshman in high school.
Wow.
Yeah. And imagine that.
I know. And
no,
because
go ahead.
kids, they'd probably have FOMO if they weren't allowed to have a phone. And then there's like social consequences to that too.
Absolutely. So I'm not just talking like an old boomer here. I had accounts on all these things, especially doing research on it. I can't just talk about TikTok and not be on TikTok.
Right. Yeah.
But one thing I've found, and many researchers have found, is that if you're doing something on the internet, if you're not just scrolling, swiping, but rather if you're going on there and posting something or posting comments on someone else's post or whatever it may be, you're more involved in it. And people who do that, more than the doom scrollers are just sitting there idly going on and on and on, people who do that are contributing. They actually have fewer symptoms of anxiety, fewer symptoms of depression and things like that in general.
So it's almost like if you have a purpose,
yes,
just like anything else in life, right? You're going to
as I
feel a bit
mentioned earlier,
better.
number one, if you're logging on to anything, even your email, say, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
Okay. I even ask myself that question, even though I know, well, I work for a company called INR. They schedule my webinars and all this sort of thing. I have to know every day what's going on there, just in case.
Yeah.
So I know I have to do this. But then I see emails from, that I don't need to open, that aren't important. And I have to teach myself to leave them over there. They'll be there tomorrow, the next day. It's just a bill from the gas company.
Yeah.
You don't have to click on it right now. You have other things to do. So that's what's hard to teach kids because they don't know what is more important than something else. It's all there, so I want to touch it all.
Does that get, so what you just mentioned, as far as like you see all these emails and you're not necessarily clicking on every single one, you're kind of triaging it. Does that get
Right.
easier over time? Because that's something I'm working on right now, is like not having to open every single email.
Right, and there are rules there too. And many
Okay.
emails, I'd like to unsubscribe, and I can't somehow. They're still there. I see them and I immediately swipe to the left.
Okay.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye. So the first few seconds I'm on my email in the morning, I'm just swiping and getting rid of stuff. It's going out to the trash. And then number two, I'm going to look at things and, like I said, triage, decide what's most important, what I can wait till this afternoon when I have more time to look at, this sort of thing. That's something I think everyone does, but apparently I'm wrong. There are people who just get stuck on their email. So what are
Yeah.
they going to do when they find a great song on TikTok? I mean, there you go.
You mentioned the mornings. Do you have rules around how you use tech in the morning? Like, do you not use it until a certain point of the day? I just find if I get on my phone first thing in the morning and start this whole circuit thing that
Yeah.
I talked about, I don't feel good. And I'm really trying not to do that.
Well, personally, there's this thing called breakfast.
Yeah.
I have to have breakfast in the morning. My wife can wait till 10 or 11 or whatever,
Yeah.
but I have to have breakfast in the morning. So I always make a cup of tea and I have some toast or something. And during that time, that's when I'll scroll through, and I'll sit down at the table, scroll through my email and just very quickly do the triage thing.
Okay.
Here's what I'm going to look at later and not. And then I put the phone away. I don't go to YouTube, although I know I favorited a really cool video on there of this new singer I've never heard of. But I'm going to wait until afternoon when I have free time and I can devote, 10, 15 minutes to just that.
Okay.
So again, my prefrontal cortex was formed long ago, like about 50 years ago. But I have to use it to logically think through things and decide what's the best thing to do, what's the thing I shouldn't do. Okay, and kids can't do that.
Yeah.
Although some of them are very, very bright. At the same time, they don't have this mechanism here where they can push things aside, or just compartmentalize things and decide what's logical and what's not. Okay?
And it's not their fault. It's just
No.
their brain's not done yet. Like they don't have those tools
Yeah.
that we have to really be self-disciplined and like have impulse control.
And that's why these algorithms that run TikTok, for example, they run on an AI algorithm that finds out what you like and then just keeps feeding you that again and again and again. And I see that on all the platforms. Instagram, I'm on there, or YouTube, for example. In fact, what is the most popular app out there or social media platform out there? That's for you.
Oh, I mean, I would assume TikTok, maybe Instagram.
No, by far it's YouTube,
Oh, is it? Okay. All
especially
right.
by younger people. About 95% or so of younger people are on YouTube, and about 20 to 30% of them keep it running constantly.
Really?
If they're on their laptop, in the background is YouTube, or on their phone, they'll swipe over and there's YouTube running. So that surprised me. Also, the fact that Facebook is really passé. Once you reach about 25 years of age or so, you start really just trying to see who had a baby, or if your grandma May is fine today or whatever like that. A lot of people use it very actively, but most people don't. So that's kind of a surprise.
Yeah, that is the YouTube surprised me. I guess, I mean, YouTube has shorts now, but I was just thinking anything that's like super short, like that would be more popular. But
Yeah, shorts and reels. Now, I mentioned my Tai Chi shorts,
yeah,
and just the fact that you have to catch everyone in the first few seconds,
yeah,
or it's gone. 'Cause those
yeah.
shorts, some of them are really, really short. I mentioned the average is 13 seconds for a music video on TikTok.
That's,
What
it's
can you hear
just,
in 13 seconds? It's
I
amazing.
know. It's crazy, but it keeps you on there because then I don't know, it like messes with your brain and you just want to see more and more.
There we go.
Yeah. They're
You
very good,
said it
very
all.
smart algorithms.
Yeah.
So does social media use impact someone's sleep?
Oh, yeah.
Have you found? Yeah.
Absolutely. Some very common physical things in the fact that, well, just about any computer, a smartphone, that has a flat screen is going to be backlit, especially going to mess around with your circadian rhythms. 'Cause,
Just from the light from the
yes,
screen.
from the
Okay.
light emitted. So we're used to sun up, sundown for our circadian rhythms. We can adjust them a little bit, turning on lights, watching TV or whatever like that. But if you're sitting, at 11 o'clock midnight with your cell phone in your hand, in your bed, and you have this fairly bright light coming at you, because most people keep the screens very bright because they want to have the animation and the coloring and all this sort of stuff, which makes it interesting. If you grab a kid's phone, turn it down to grayscale, everything's kind of gray, and you still see everything going on, hear it, all this stuff. They don't have much interest. Instead of being on an hour, they're on it for 10 minutes. Like, this is boring. It's like reading a comic book with no color or whatever.
Is that a hack for parents? They can just
Oh,
adjust
yeah.
their kids' settings.
Yeah, you can turn it down to grayscale, but also amber mode, it's often called. It's yellowing your screen. So now when you have the light coming out from this, what we call blue light, from a screen like that coming out, very similar to the white lights we see in compact fluorescent bulbs or the tube bulbs, that's a white light. And blue light's on the same scale. It kind of mimics sunlight.
Oh,
That
okay.
same value. So what it's telling you is not late. I'm here. I'm the sun. It is telling your brain, something called the pineal gland in the midbrain, this is where you make something called melatonin. Okay. So melatonin is important for getting you to feel sleepy, start yawning or whatever like that. And it doesn't ramp up. Normally with, say, a hunter-gatherer society, when the sun goes down, within an hour or so, they're all sitting around yawning, because melatonin is just ramping up through their brain.
Yeah.
And this is what doesn't happen with a smartphone or a bright computer screen or a 60-inch flat screen TV or whatever, is it emits this blue light out here, which affects the brain. And that's just the physical part of it. The other part are emotional. So if you've been running through your TikTok or Instagram, I often say it's the place to go if you want to get really upset. Because you see your friends or influencers or whatever that look perfect. And I'm looking at you now. You have this beautifully curated books stand behind you, all this sort of
but
thing.
everything outside of this frame is somewhat of a mess, right? That's Instagram.
Chaos. And that's what people don't get. I mean, everything you go to, especially with an influencer or just about anyone these days, is curated, as they say, like a museum curates an exhibit of paintings. Everything is perfect. You can see some behind me. Over there, you can see some of my wife's paintings. There's an oil painting there and something over here. But I'm not going to arrange everything so it's so prominent that you think, boy, I'd love to live in his house. I guarantee you, you would not want to live in my house. Okay. But we see this, and we say their life is perfect.
Yeah.
They just spend an hour putting on their makeup and putting on a wig and whatever. I mean, speaking of girls here, of course, and then getting everything in the background perfect. And then they come on and do their TikTok dance or whatever like that. And you say, that was so cool, dude. Come on, that was so cool. But you don't realize that the camera shifted a little way. You see her, her 300-pound father sitting there eating a pizza or something. I don't
It's
know.
not real.
It's definitely not real. So that's a problem. And then we don't sleep well. We're spending time, ruminating on why isn't my life so good, and why do I have this body dysmorphia is called, where I don't like my body. Her body's perfect. What's wrong with me? Okay, so.
Yeah, but her body, honestly, has probably been adjusted, right? There's really good filters. There's editing that can make you look perfect. I mean, she probably doesn't even look like that.
Yeah. In my social media webinar, which you'll see later on this month, I actually have a video from a young woman in England who teaches what's called the tin whistle. It's a little Irish whistle. I know how to play it myself, so I watch her videos. But one day she came on and just took off everything that made her look cool. All the makeup, the wig, the background behind her, the echo on her, reverb on her music, and all this sort of stuff. And one at a time, she took the layer off, a layer off, a layer off. So she's sitting there, more or less in this white T-shirt, no makeup, and playing this flute, and it suddenly sounds terrible. And then she had a little line there that said, "Social media, it's all fake."
I love that. I love it when people do that.
Yeah, it's really perfect. And there are a lot of people who do that. Some braver influencers, for example, who have enough of an ego that they can show you, this is fake, man. This is not real. This is not life,
Yeah.
It's true.
I know. I think more people need to do that because especially when you're young, you assume that that person has perfect skin. And I mean, honestly, probably most of the time it's a filter or it's a lot of makeup.
Yeah, more and more filters. I even have some filters for TikTok and Instagram in my social media webinar, which you'll see later on this month. Yeah. It's amazing. In fact, the example that I have in my webinar is this perfectly attractive young girl, maybe 17 or 18 in England. And then you show these progressive filters. They keep adding until she looks like, a movie star or whatever. And she was absolutely attractive before she started adding any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And now she has fuller lips, like she has Botox, and her eyebrows are totally changed, and all this sort of stuff. But you can do it, even on here, on logging into Zoom or whatever. It's really easy to put on filters, and
Yep.
even I look better, which
Yeah.
is amazing.
I know it's tricky. So I do want to talk about maybe some tips that you would have for people, like whether it's at night, like maybe limiting use before they go to bed, or even just maybe checking themselves as they're using their phone to make sure they're not, falling into that trap that you mentioned.
I always start with digital literacy.
Okay.
What are you doing? You're on this thing, on this computer, which is connected to other computers. We call it the World Wide Web because it sounded cool. And now we're all connected here. We can see just about anything. And I haven't even mentioned troubling aspects like, cyberbullying,
Oh,
pornography. About half of all teenage boys are on pornographic sites. Some of them pay for these sites. They're behind paywalls, this sort of thing. I'm not even going to get into that part.
do you talk about that in that course that I'm going to take?
I don't, but I'm going
Okay.
to add it. I may
Okay.
actually have it added before you take it
Okay.
on the 16th. It needs to be said.
Yeah.
Now, my brother, Michael Howard, I don't know if you've ever taken a webinar from him.
I don't think so.
He's a neuropsychologist, PhD. And he's writing one right now called, talks about internet addiction. He's actually calling it, as a psychologist, he's calling it addiction
Okay.
and loneliness. Okay, so we have a real problem with people of all ages who are just absolutely lonely.
Is that loneliness paradox?
Yeah, it's often called the loneliness paradox.
What is that? If you have a couple of minutes just to describe that.
Well, number one, why are you lonely if you have 1,000 people on Facebook who love you,
Yeah.
whatever, and you're on TikTok and you're even making TikTok dance videos and you're so cool? Why are you lonely? Because you don't touch anyone. You don't sit in front of them, look in their eyes. You don't really reach deeply to their soul. You don't really deeply communicate. And that's a huge problem. So even people who see people all day long, they're at college or school or work or whatever, and they seem to be surrounded by people who are friendly and nice, you joke with them and all that, and then you're alone. And I equate it to, in the past, I've worked for many companies or whatever in my long career, and you have people who sit near you or work with you or whatever, and you think they're your best friend. You get along so well at work, and you just laugh at all your jokes and all that. And then you leave the job or get fired or something, and you suddenly separate from each other, and you never hear from these people again. So there wasn't any real deep connection. You were there because you both worked there. And Facebook is the same way, or TikTok or whatever. You're there because you have a connection. You both like music, or you both like to dress up or play tricks or whatever. And if that person goes away or doesn't call you or contact you, then they're gone, and you're completely alone. So that's a part of what the internet does. Beyond that, I like to talk, beyond just digital literacy, I like to talk to people about detoxing.
Okay.
So if you're ready for it, and you can start quite easily by having tech-free zones around your house. So I'm always thinking about kids when I say this, but it can be anyone. Places where you do not get on the cell phone. The dining room table, the kitchen table, never get on the cell phone.
Okay.
Or is there a place where people go to study or whatever, or this is my little office here. I don't get on the cell phone here at all.
Ever?
This is for work. I
Okay.
can go out into the next room, living room, sit down for a few minutes, scroll around, have some fun. But when I step back in here, that thing stays in the kitchen or somewhere. I don't even want it
Okay.
near me. I don't want to hear it going bzzz and say, oh
Yeah.
my, what's that? I'm missing something. No. So that part of it. So having tech-free zones. Number two, you want to have a limited detox. And this is just deciding how many hours a day you're going to be on. And that's it. And you can assign yourself, okay, I'm only going on here for 2 hours a day, and I've got to have at least 15 or 20 minutes for my email. I have to write emails back to people. It takes time. So you figure out how many hours you can do this. In fact, there's a great study done by a psychology professor named Hunt, and he divided a group of freshmen going into college, same college, into two groups randomly. One group could go on the internet, do whatever they wanted to. They're just away from home for the first time. They got their cell phone, got their internet, whatever they want to do. The other group could only go on their platforms, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, 10 minutes. So if you have 4 platforms you always hit, you can only go on there 10 minutes a day. So do whatever you have to do and get off, okay? And those people at the end of a 6-week study had much higher scores on happiness scales, less depression, fewer feelings of anxiety and things like that than those who could do whatever they wanted to. So you need discipline.
Okay.
Having said that, then you go beyond a simple detox where you maybe take a day where you don't touch your phone. I mean, literally, and this is hard for many people because
Yeah.
a lot of people have anxiety if they drive to the store and realize they didn't bring their phone. I say, you have your money, you got your wallet, don't you? Come on, we can do this, come on. So I kind of walk my wife through the steps here, but we don't need to have the cell phone. No one's going to call us at Safeway. Okay, forget this. Okay. So anyway, also, if you're normally you have 2 days off a week or whatever, it doesn't matter whether it's Saturday, Sunday, or Tuesday, Friday, or whatever, pick a day or pick the entire weekend and turn off your cell phone. I mean, turn it back on if you have emergency calls or, you have work where you have to be in touch with people, but literally don't use it. It's amazing the things you'll find that you forgot that you love to do. Just take a walk instead of lying on the sofa and scrolling TikTok. Take a walk around the block. Take the dog out, go hiking, read a novel. There are a lot of people who stop reading everything pretty much except, especially novels, because they think it's kind of a waste of time. I don't have time.
Yeah. But that's where you let your brain kind of like explore and let it be free instead of like constrained to the screen.
Yeah. So if you get off of social media for an hour a day, you reclaim that hour, then you can read that novel you've been waiting to read. Your friend has recommended to you over and over. Why haven't you read that? It's so great. Now you have time. Well, you always had time, but you had to convince yourself that this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so a full detox, and there are a couple of studies on this, is where they had college students ramp down their time to the point where after the end of a month, they had 0 time. But they still had to connect with their professors and hand in assignments and all this sort of thing, but no time on the internet. And some of them stayed there. About 85% of them went back to somewhere near the levels they had before of media use, but some people just stayed off of it. Said, this is heaven. I don't feel any anxiety anymore.
Yeah. Well, with me, because I'm on my phone a lot, way more than I care to even admit right now. But when I do take detoxes, I try to do it weekly if I can. And it's like the first, hour or two, I'm a little like anxious and I feel like I want to reach for it for whatever reason. But then once I get over that hump, it feels so good that I don't even want to pick it up again. I mean, I have to because it's part of my work, but it feels really good.
Yeah. And, you don't have to go to those extremes. As I mentioned before, you're an adult. You can take care of yourself. So just slowly winding down from the rampant use you had before. Because most people just use the cell phone because they're bored.
Yeah, they just reach for it, right? And they don't even know what they're doing.
You're standing in a line at the bank or the supermarket or whatever, and you just reach in your back pocket, grab it. It's just natural. You don't even know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But some people just have a really low threshold for boredom. They just, because of social media, because of the internet, we don't feel like we can sit in a room for half an hour and just entertain ourselves. Okay? Think, project things, just make up songs, whatever. Remember poems you memorized in high school. It really doesn't matter as long as you're not just blindly, slavishly picking up the cell phone. And again, people will say, okay, boomer, whatever, but it really applies across the board if you're 10 years old or 70 years old. It's the same problem.
Do you recommend like timers? Because there's all these different apps that time however much you're on your phone or that you're on Instagram and kind of cut you off after whatever time that you put in there.
Yeah, and they don't cut you off right away, but they sort of give you like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yes, definitely. I know perfectly normal adults, 40, 50 years old, who actually use these timers because they know, I had a friend of mine say, she said, once I get on Instagram, I don't have anything to do, the dishes are done or whatever, I'll be on there for like 30, 40 minutes, an hour. That's
It's
ridiculous.
crazy. Yeah.
I said, well, just set your timer. There's nothing that you need to see on there that you can't be seen in 10 minutes. Okay. And then you go on to another thing like Facebook. They have a timer on there. There's a Google family. There's an Apple timer. It's about every tech giant has something like that, for their apps. So, and that's a way of just forcing yourself to get off there.
Yeah. Once you get sucked in, like for me, it's Instagram. And once I get sucked in, it's like time compresses. And I think that I've been on there for 5 minutes and it's been 45 minutes. And I'm like, I got work to do. Like, stop.
Interesting thing is that there's another theory that feeds in here called flow theory. The famous Hungarian psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And he developed this decades ago. And flow is something that feeds into algorithms like TikTok and whatever, where we get into a groove and we're just going with it. Now, a good part of flow is if you're running, say, a 10K race and halfway through it, 5K, you're feeling like you're feeling amazing. You're just like you're floating, all these endorphins and dopamine and all this stuff's running through your brain, and you just feel like you can just go on forever. Flow is like that. You can sit down with that novel on the sofa and start reading it, and you'll look up and think it's 20 minutes, and it's been an hour.
Yeah.
And that's a good application of flow.
Yeah.
Or the other way you can look at it is you've been on TikTok for an hour, and you realize how your brain can trick you. Okay, so we need to harness flow, for example, in a way that's going to be adaptive for us and not maladaptive.
Yeah. God, there's just so much to know. I'm so excited to take your course this next weekend. I feel like I could talk to you forever about this.
I think you just did.
I know we did.
We need to
we
get
did
off
go-
here. Do you have a timer?
I know. Wait, I'm seeing the time right now. I'm like, we got to go.
Okay, we gotta get off.
So if people want to connect with you or learn more from you, what's the best place for that?
They can contact me through INR. INR is Institute for Natural Resources. I work for them. They're also welcome to email me. I have a kind of a professional email, which is I can give you or say it.
Yeah, you can say it, and I'll put it in the show notes too. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's called Tao of Stress. Now, TAO, like the Tao is a Chinese philosophy, .of of .stress, STRESS at Gmail. So Tao of Stress, that's where all my students and everyone emails me in general. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can
awesome.
go onto my YouTube channel, just type in Kent Howard in the search bar, and you'll see my happy face pop up. And I often put up segments of my webinars on there. Yeah,
Okay.
Little 10-minute snippets or whatever like that. It would never make it on TikTok. 10 minutes is way too long.
Oh man, yeah. Well, YouTube though, I'm sure it probably does
Yeah,
pretty good on
YouTube,
YouTube.
short, maybe it might work out.
Yeah. I'll make sure to put all of that down in the show note. And just thank you so much for your time today, Kent.
You're
We
welcome.
learned a lot.
Joy, absolute joy. Yeah.
All right. And thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Straight Up with Steph and being interested in living better. What many listeners do is subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. Remember, you are the best person to take care of you, and by learning what we talk about on this show, you're taking one more step to being a healthier and happier you. I'll talk to you soon.